Totally. Thanks.
My
Awesome.
apologies.
No, no worries at all.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Yeah, so the reset button exercise, we can go ahead and start by taking 3 to 5 long breaths. Don't worry so much about the shape of these breaths, just allow your body to breathe in any way that feels comfortable. And after we take a couple breaths here, we'll start to bring our awareness to our inner experience. So just breathing for a moment, coming into this space. All right, so we're bringing our awareness to our inner experience. We'll begin by spending just a moment noticing our bodily sensations, examining our body for sensations that are pleasant, that are neutral, that are unpleasant. Don't try to judge them and change them in any way. We're just noticing the physical sensations that exist in our body at the moment here.
We rounded up our followers.
And now we'll keep our attention focused inward and turn our attentions to any emotions that are present. Are we feeling happy, sad, excited, depressed, anxious? As with our thoughts, don't become engaged with these emotions, judge them, or try to change them in any way. We're just taking a moment or so to notice the emotions that exist in our body at this time. Now, when we're ready, we can shift our attention to the thoughts that are going through our minds at this moment. Are we thinking about something that happened in the past, such as regret, maybe disappointment, maybe a challenging or traumatizing event? Are we planning for something in the future or imagining a difficult or frightening situation in the future? Are we thinking about an existing noise, pain somewhere in our body, or even how to do this exercise? Spend a minute noticing the types of thoughts going through our minds here. And as we're noticing the types of thoughts going through our mind, without getting caught up in the content of those thoughts, um, as best as possible, acknowledge these thoughts as temporary mental events that come and go, kind of like clouds moving across the sky. We don't need to try to change them or judge them in any way. We're just noticing the types of thoughts that are popping into our mind at this present time. Just take a note of that. Alrighty. After noticing our thoughts, and whenever you feel ready to do so, feel free to bring your attention back to your breath and inhale and exhale slowly, just a couple times, 3 to 5 times. Alrighty. When we're ready, feel free to bring our attention back to the external world and um, join us back here whenever you're ready. Alrighty, folks. Well, thank you so much for joining me in that. It's kind of nice just to take a moment and check in with ourselves. And I feel like we maybe don't get a lot of opportunities to do that throughout the workday or, well, whatever we're up to. So thanks again, folks. And it's great to see everybody today. Like we mentioned, we'll be talking elevator speeches today. And this feels very kind of topical in the work I've been doing on my end here. Christy and I last week had the opportunity to share the TRCN initiative here with some folks that had gathered to discuss the intersection of mental health and climate change. And it was a challenge to be able. I mean, we had longer than an elevator speech, several minutes or so, but it still was a challenge to really condense down all of this important information to just a couple minutes. What is salient? What's most important? What what do I need to get out in this very brief moment I have with folks? And I think that's even more challenging, like thinking about a lot of the communities, I work and live in. Some of these topics are a little challenging to bring up. Mental health might not be a word or phrase or concept people really connect with readily. Same goes for climate change or climate disasters or the CEB crisis. Can be sometimes a little challenging to connect with people about. So I'm very excited to hear today about how all of us here maybe navigate that and can strategize to really connect with people in our community and yeah, invite people to be part of this work. So with that, I think I'll turn it over to Christy for a little bit more of an introduction and introduction to our breakout groups here today. So again, great to see everybody. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Christian. And I'm going to say, y'all, if you want to do a little shake after that beautiful grounding exercise, you're also welcome to. On my end, it's quite early, and Christian, that was so nice. And I had a moment of like, oh, I'm going to fall asleep. So if you need to introduce some energy, feel free to do that. So we're a small group today, and we were gonna do an activity all around elevator speeches today. That included like breakout groups and all these different things. But since we're small, I think we'll just stay in this group and we can be a small, intimate group around this, and then we'll grow around it from there. So we're gonna do well, it's called a think, pair, share activity, and this might just be think and share because I don't think we have enough people to like do the pair and into a share. But essentially the goal is to really ground ourselves in the practice of invitation and all the beauties and the challenges within that. So we're gonna start off with a writing exercise. So if anyone doesn't have a pen and paper on hand, I'll give you all a pause. Oh, Becky's ready. But yeah, I'll give everyone like a few moments. And if I could get a thumbs up that you have like a writing utensil or something like that, minus Becky because we know Becky's got one. Um, we'll move forward. Reb's ready. Christy got a writing utensil. Perfect. Okay. So let's see. Let me find my things. So I'm gonna do it myself. So I'm gonna get my own pen and paper ready. So the first one is thinking about sometimes you've been accepted an invitation to a new group and you had a positive experience with that. You agreed to it, it went well. Maybe you didn't even agree to it, but you felt like it's a good experience. And let's expand outside of the CEB crisis. This could be any group you've been invited to in your lifetime. This could have been when you were a kid and you're invited to a student club. Parents out there, maybe a teacher like wrangled you into the PTA, volunteer group, but any sort of group. We're going to give ourselves a few moments to just think about and write down what about those invitations stood out to you that made you join in. We're thinking about welcoming, relationship, belonging, all those many elements that come in that you feel motivated you to accept that invitation. We'll give folks a few moments. And someone is coming in, so I'm going to repitch that and catch them up to speed. Hi, welcome. For those of you just joining us, we're doing a writing exercise right now. So just to catch you up, we are doing, our agenda today is all about elevator pitches. So we're doing a writing exercise right now. And so just thinking about times you were accepted an invitation to a new group that you feel was overall a positive experience, even if you declined the invitation or not. And this could be an invitation to any sort of group, any sort of club, any part of your lifetime. and just thinking about what about that invitation or those invitations sent out to you that made you want to join or made that experience positive. So we're going to give ourselves like a couple more minutes or so to give everyone a chance. And I got to write down some stuff myself. All right, and just finishing up those last thoughts. I'm hoping everyone's almost done because I felt like I was in a good spot. Now we're going to do the opposite. Now thinking about times you didn't accept an invitation to your group, or maybe felt forced and pressured, and you got out of that group as fast as you could if you felt like obligated to join. So kind of the same concept. What about those invitations didn't land so well? Especially considering a time maybe if the invitation had been different, maybe it would have gone a different way. So thinking about invitations gone wrong and a little bit of that why didn't that land so well with you? And we'll give it, so just like before, a couple minutes to just think about that and write that out. All right, giving folks a couple last 10 seconds to finish that thought. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so this is the share moment. I would love to know from y'all, Let's start with the good side. What invitations did you accept into a group that you felt went well? And on my end, I'm gonna try to take notes, thinking about common things that come up. And I'll go first just to model the model and give you all a chance to think about that. I'm at Portland State University, and we have an Asian Pacific Islander employee resource group. And I joined Portland State during COVID, when API hate crimes and rhetoric was a really hot topic during COVID. And because it was COVID, I also like joined PSU remotely, and I moved to the area. So I had no sense of community, no attachment to this place where I was both a student and working at. And our API employee resource group was doing quarterly events where we were coming together, having meals together, sharing experiences. And those experiences for me really helped give me a sense of place and a sense of people, and helped me meet people besides like my own group and my own team I was working with, and as well as being able to talk with people who were going through some similar experiences of harm as I was as well. And it was also a really beautiful experience. You know, they fed us really well, let's just say. Lots of good food. And so it was only after like a year of going to these events where they said, hey, by the way, y'all, we're looking for new leadership. Would anyone like to join our little leadership team? And, you know, it was a very like gentle invitation to everyone in the group. They walked, they just had a little like sign up sheet and just passed it around so people could sign up without, at least for me, without feeling any pressure. I did pressure my friend to sign up with me. So that was self-imposed on my end. But I feel like I accepted that invitation because when I knew I had witnessed this group, so I saw the group dynamics, I saw these were people that got along, that felt like I felt like their values were aligned with me, and that this was a group of people that understood my lived experience. Um, and I felt as well there was something that I could do. If I joined, they were very clear about like what role and possible roles I could play. Um, Even if it was a very quick pitch, like, hey y'all, you want to join this group, you know? And so I felt very confident going in that this was something that I could also contribute to, and I wouldn't just be there as a wasted space. So that is my group. And I'm going to turn it over to y'all. Does anyone have share a invitation that they feel went well?
I can break the silence here unless anybody else wanted to, and then please come off mute. But I will just say, until then, there's a group called the National Prevention Science Coalition to Improve Lives, that invited me to be on their board a couple years ago. And it was, you know, in the world prior to very recently, at least, the word trauma-informed was sort of in this buzzword category where there were a lot of invitations because I got to be the trauma-informed guy, and then an organization just got to say, like, we're trauma-informed type of thing. But it felt there was much more of an authentic partnership beforehand. It wasn't just a random invitation. We had gotten to know each other, done some work together where I knew that they were authentically interested in, you know, engaging in trauma-informed practices. And then they were very clear in the strengths and weaknesses that I have, and, you know, understood that and saw the strengths as being add-ons of essentially youthful optimism with some, you know, experience with advocacy and lobbying, and then offered for the weaknesses that other folks on the board can help me better understand prevention science. And they had a lot of expertise that gave me opportunities to learn and grow. And it's been an incredibly meaningful partnership and group for me to be a part of, that I really, really love.
Thanks, Jessie. That was very sweet.
I'm happy to go after Jessie. I think that our topics are kind of related. And it starts with connection. It starts with that relationship component. And this is a very recent story from just last Thursday.
Hey.
I was invited to attend a trauma-informed writing group that sprang up organically in the community of Walla Walla. Based on some of the work that we do, we had connected with a few groups last year. Apparently some of the lessons stuck, and they formed a creative writing group around it. And during the first meeting, they invited me out, and here are the things that I heard that really resonated with me. Hey, this is a thing I'm doing. Would you attend to support me? And it's like, well, of course. I'm going to support someone I know, someone that I care about. She also said, I'd like your feedback on this specific component. And it made me feel like, yeah, I can contribute. I already know how to contribute to this group. And then last but not least, she said, I'd like if you could help lead this last portion. I don't really feel super secure in my leadership to do this. If I had backup, it would make me feel better. So in just a 1, 2, 3 type of way, she spoke to the relationship that we had. There was a bid for connection. I'd like your feedback. And then she empowered leadership. So it was just like, how can I say no to something like this? Absolutely. I'm all in. And at the event, to kind of speak to what Christy was talking about, she had some agreements like safe space guidelines, how to create, how to foster a safe space, what to do if you're feeling like you want to, talk about this as though it was some sort of first person writing, always assume that this is fiction. And then she provided food, and it was good food.
Yeah.
So that helps.
Thanks, Becky. I wrote that down because I feel like that's like a mini model for a pitch as well. Thank you. Who would like to grab?
I don't so much have a particular group I'm thinking of. I was just thinking about things that would encourage me to be part of a group. And so in that invitation, I would like to feel like they thought of me as a potential valued member of the group, that the delivery of the message was enthusiastic, not, boring or whatever, and that that maybe there would have been identified, if I knew this person, a particular quality of my own that she or he thought that there would be value for the group to be able to have me as part of it. So, sorry, I don't have a specific thing that comes up, but I think if I think back about specific areas of joining groups, I think the enthusiasm of the person who was asking was a big part of that.
Mm-hmm. I'm sensing grab some consistency across us around that relationship piece, for sure.
I'll go next if that's okay. Yeah, my name's Chris. I'm a therapist. I'm an addiction therapist. I'm based in the southwest of England, although I'm joining you from Morocco currently. I'm in the early days of setting up an addiction group based on sort of public health, addiction as a public health problem. In the southwest of England. This is all kind of quite new to me because as a therapist, I generally just kind of spend my time in front of a computer doing one-on-one work. So groups are a bit of an unknown thing for me. So to this exercise, I was just basically kind of coming up with some emotion words about how I feel about being here today. There's quite a mixture, really. It's I put sort of in feeling warm, feeling included, feeling excited, feeling curious, feeling like this is the start of a process I could grow in. Also some nerves, some uncertainty, and a bit of imposter syndrome. That's a real mixture of stuff here. So that's my offering for you.
Thanks, Chris. And I appreciate a therapist taking a prompt a different way.
Yeah, yeah,
That's very much speaks to your background. And I would
yeah.
say that, yeah.
Yeah. I do a lot of private practice work, but I also work for kind of a big private mental health hospital based in Scotland. And I'm really bothered by the way that mental health provision, at least in the UK, is being kind of hijacked by whether you can afford it or not. And I find it's marginalising so many people. So I wanted to sort of do something that was kind of grassroots, maybe sort of by donation only, and sort of linked with other kind of similar grassroots organisations in my area. So yeah, it's early days yet, but I kind of feel quite optimistic about it. Yeah, watch this space.
Well, you're in the right spot for that because I think lots of us in this group are in our early days as well. So this is a good learning exchange moment too.
Yeah. I've had to, I've had to sort of, people have had to stop therapy because they couldn't afford it and they really needed it. And I just kind of really rankles with me, But anyway, I'll give the floor to somebody else.
No, thanks, Chris. And that's a core component of how we're doing this.
Cheers. Thanks.
Anyone else want to share before we go to the next one?
Christy, I just want to jump in a bit.
Yeah, Bob.
This is Bob. What you just shared, Chris, is happening everywhere in terms of cost. We've basically profit is now the goal of much of the mental health system, not service.
For sure.
And that is why a public health approach is so important, especially community-based public health approach, because people don't have to pay for that. They just come, and yeah. So I also wanted to say welcome to Jevanette. I haven't seen you in a while. Good to see you. I don't know if you want to just briefly introduce yourself.
Sure, Bob. Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Jevanette Steva, and I'm the director of the New Hanover Resiliency Task Force here in Wilmington, North Carolina. And I'm probably going to be pretty quiet today. I'm kind of trying to transition my brain from where I was before into this space. So I'm just listening and glad to be here. Thank you.
That's all right. And welcome, Jevanette. Thank you for being here. And no pressure. This is like voluntary participation group. So that's all right. And yeah, Bob and Chris, we could go on a long tangent on that topic. Reb?
I'm just surprised of the low numbers here today, and I just wonder if it might have been because we had homework of vision, mission, and each. Because we've had better attendance here in the past. Anyway, I just want to value this group for myself, and thank you so much for being here. And don't know what happened, but here we are.
Yeah, absolutely, Reb. It's, I always find it easy to blame the 47th for low attendance. But that is a good point. Maybe like the pressure of homework could have played a role as well. But I appreciate y'all for being here as well.
I don't want to minimize that either. I think it's important to have homework. I think it's good for us to come with something. So thank you for doing that too.
We actually got a number of emails from folks saying they couldn't come because of basically crisis in their community or their organization. Some of it, two people said that their funding had now been cut by Trump. And
Yep.
they were in that kind of mode, and others were trying to just figure out stuff. So we're going to have to sort of figure out how to move our way through all these kind of issues and keep people engaged as much as we can.
Mhm. And I think it's what's happening in the United States and globally that for me compels me to be part of groups like this at the same time. Yeah. So the second half of the shares, the same writing prompt, and for this one, we don't have to go into as much detail. But thinking about qualities of an invitation that didn't go so well, that are important to name and put out into a group. And I really like to think of this in the context of like developmental advocacy and everyone being in different stages of, I feel this is something really important to me. And sometimes that deep sense of urgency and importance we can attach to something can also be the thing that pushes people away because they can sense that urgency within them, like, oh, like this is too intense for me. And so I think that's why it's so important to think about this other side when we talk about elevator pitches. And speaking of urgency and feeling like, whoa, this is too much, the thing that I wanted to share was when we had just moved into our neighborhood, our HOA needed new people on the board. And it felt like a bit of a trap because they did a little neighborhood party and then they were like, join our board, be the president. Also, it's gonna really suck, and you're gonna have to like respond to neighbors calling the police on each other every single day, and everyone doesn't like each other. You should totally do it, even though it'll take up a bunch of your time and be very, very highly stressful. You should join. And I was like, I don't know anyone here. Like, this is way too much. This is so much pressure. And now I've been in this neighborhood for a couple years, and I feel if I was invited again, now that I know people, and I know what role I could play, it could have gone a very different way. But what I was hearing was threats, aggression, and seeing a bunch of really unhappy people and trying to like get me to share a burden. And that very much was like, I just got here, y'all. I don't. And I had no attachment to the place or group as well, or no stake in the game at the time. So, all things to consider when we are inviting our neighbors and our community members into groups. But yes, but anything like that y'all would like to put into the space of the things not to do, or the things that happened to me that I recommend don't get recreated when we're thinking about elevator pitches.
If I may, I'm just thinking of an ecotherapy, a Buddhist-informed ecotherapy group training that I did last year, which kind of on paper seemed really cool to me. The reality of it for me was it was really kind of quite badly held. It was sort of the opposite of what you were saying about being pressured, Christy. It was too vague. It was kind of everything's nice and everything's fluffy and aren't trees lovely, which of course they are, but there was no direction really. It was kind of find your own way forward here, to find your own exercises, and I felt really like my time was being wasted and a little bit bored and a little bit resentful. So I'm kind of thinking really that the pitch has got to be between that extreme and the extreme that you're saying, really, because people have kind of got to know what they're there for, haven't they?
I resonate with the no direction piece to it. And I feel
Yeah,
like that can happen where you want someone to join, but you're like so nervous about giving them ownership of a space, and
yeah,
giving them a sense of accountability and responsibility. They don't attach as well, and you have no idea
yeah,
why you're there. That's a good
yeah.
one.
It's finding the sweet spot between giving people the responsibility and giving them a bit of a kind of clue about what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah.
Thanks, Chris.
Cool.
And Christian, I saw you had unmuted. Did you want to share?
Yeah, just a little thing from that happened in the last year or so. So I work on campus here in Portland, Oregon, on the west coast of the United States, and a lot of advocacy efforts kind of just popping up here and there, especially being involved in the social work program here. And I was kind of peripheral to a conversation that was happening around an advocacy effort that I was actually really interested in. And the people who were talking about it kind of noticed I was listening in, and they ended up pulling me in. I exchanged contact information with these folks, and they said, "Yeah, we'll hit you up and get you involved here." And then I reached out to them, never heard back. So it kind of made me feel a little disappointed that I never got that follow up. So that really kind of cemented for me the importance of following through when I do invite people or propose an effort or an initiative, whatever it is. So yeah.
Mhm. Absolutely. I think that follow-up, that communication piece, that does reflect from what we were talking about earlier about feeling like I can contribute and feeling valued. If you're just like, if you can tell when you're invited into a group to be a number, and the lack of authenticity there. Bob, did you have something to say?
No, just wanted to follow up on that. I had experience last year where I was invited to be the keynote speaker at a key event, and it was about a month away. It was sort of last minute, and so we started to make plane reservations and all that. And then about a week before that, they canceled it, canceled my talk after already spending money on it, all that. And so it just left me feeling totally uninterested in that organization, et cetera. So they didn't follow through. It was very similar to Christian's experience.
Oh, okay. I feel there could be a Reddit sub for this. Reb, Becky, Jesse. Reb, go ahead.
So again, I didn't have a real specific one. I think the only specific one I have is I have been invited to be on a couple boards, and I just didn't have the confidence in myself to join.
Mm.
That's that's my thing. But in addition to that, what I'd written down was somebody who invited me who was not personable, or also if when I was invited, I was really busy and couldn't deal with any more stress.
Mhm.
And, or if the invitation was delivered in a stressful way and feeling unenthusiastic. So yeah, that's it.
Mhm. I resonate with that, Reb. The sense of urgency and I know you're stressed. Can you take on more? Is the invitation. That makes you feel like you're giving me an option here. I'm going to say no for that.
Yeah, I can kind of echo Reb's statement. That's similar to what I had written down. Whenever it's like I don't feel safe or I feel too vulnerable, that's usually when I'm gonna duck out of something. Or to speak to one of Jesse's comments earlier, if there's a whiff of tokenization, that is a quick turnoff.
Mhm.
If we invite Becky, we'll have a trauma-informed person. Well, I mean, Becky is a private citizen. Any number of things could come out of my mouth at any given time. So we have to be careful about that tokenization.
Gotta invite the brown person to the group. Absolutely. I think that's a good one, Becky. Jesse, did you want to share anything? I just want to give you the option.
I was thinking the same thing of like when it's not authentic inclusion and it's just like I'm not going to be just the trauma informed guy because that's a group process thing, not like a one person is so we then are type of deal. Is what I was thinking kind of in contrast. So very much agree. But appreciate that, Chris.
Beautiful. Well, thanks, y'all. So I am going to, I was writing down everything as I promised, and I'll just read out like kind of like the do's and do not do's. So what went well? People really spoke to like an authentic partnership. So something that they feel like it's gonna be reciprocal. It's gonna be mutual gain. Really rooting in relationships. So these aren't like random strangers coming up to us and saying like, "Hey, can you invite me?" These are people that we knew that invited us in. And along with that, they knew our strengths. So they knew what we would gain from it and how we could contribute in a meaningful way. And with that, because they knew us and because it felt like a deliberate invitation, there was a sense of feeling valued for it and a sense of purpose and a sense of belonging in that way. People also said enthusiasm goes a long way. Um, and inviting in a little bit of curiosity of like, how could I not only contribute in this specific moment, but how could I grow the group itself, and as well as how I can grow through this group, I think is really important. And I also think that lots of people spoke to the follow-up of I was invited to a group, but what actually made me stick around was the experience of that group. So thinking about like the first impressions really do hit hard in terms of like we all witnessed a group's dynamics. We all took away something positive from after that contribution to that space. So I think not only inviting people intentionally, but when people are part of our group, embracing them intentionally as well. And so for the not wells, I feel like there were a couple like resonating lines of that. I'm not going to join if I feel activated by your invitation. If a stress response is occurring, either I'm feel too vulnerable, if this sounds too stressful, if this is a burden that I feel is not needed and I can reject or isn't mine to uphold, I'm going to let that go. Combined with Chris's point of it's so not activating that there's no purpose in me participating in this group. We talk about in TIC a lot about like stress being a neutral body. If there's absolutely no point, and if I'm either a number, a tokenization, if I'm just a body showing up in this group and I have no purpose or meaning, it's not going to be a successful connection. People also spoke to that lack of confidence. So again, which I think speaks to that lack of relationship as well. And then some real things happening where I might be too busy. And I might feel because I'm too busy, I'm also not gaining. I think about like our conservation of resources. If I'm going to invest this resource, either it be my time, my energy, my passion, and I'm not going to gain anything reciprocal from that investment of resources, then it just feels like I'm just going to burn out in this process. And let me see. And someone also noted like maybe, I think it was Christy said this, like Christian and Bob spoke to that follow-up side. Maybe I participated and it just felt like a waste of time. Or maybe nothing happened. Nothing happened at all, which also feels like a waste of time. Put some like mental energy into this space without any follow-up. And I think those are all really important things for us to consider when we're thinking about inviting people to our TRCNs, our community networks, whatever we want to call them. Because sometimes I think we can get so stuck in our minds about like, I need to invite people in that we can lose direction of like what we're inviting them in for. Are really important. So for the second half of this activity, we're going to really think about elevator pitches. And so I have a couple of Bob slides that I'm going to share to help us like think about elevator pitches. And I'd love for us to, I know some of us have been doing this work a little bit longer than others. So for those comfortable, I'm going to ask y'all to like share your process and your steps and invite us as well to create some drafts of our elevator pitches as well. So let me share screen. And make it big. Let's see. So there are a couple different ways we can approach an elevator pitch, and this is a way like organized by Bob. And I also have my own method for thinking about elevator pitches and invitations. I know Jesse has a great flyer as well for elevator pitches. So all that to say, there's not a specific singular way to do an elevator pitch. However, we come up with it, I think whatever path you feel you align with, I think is important. But for those of us new to elevator pitches, here's a good way to think about creating it. And as Bob says here, in 5 easy steps, nice and organized. The first step is spending some time thinking about and then writing down your vision of success and mission statement for your TRCN. What would be different in your neighborhood or community in 2 to 4 years, and giving some examples you want to pitch. And I think what's important about that is bringing in that sense of curiosity, as some people had mentioned, as well as a little bit of that dreaming in. That's what for those of us who do work in trauma, what we know about trauma and stress activation is that imagination tends to be the thing that goes. So really moving into the dream and the hope that I feel can get lost when we think about CEB crisis work. And I'm assuming from that, there'd be quite a lot we might vision into that. And you might vision that into like that miracle question, that visualization, which is if I went to sleep and I woke up and all my dreams came true around my TRCN, how would I know? What would the signs be? What would I visually be seeing? What would I be hearing and going through the senses? And so after you've kind of like given yourself some time to really dream in and contextualize that and bring that to life, then you would give yourself an opportunity to condense that into, shorten it into a sentence, focusing on actions the network would take as a response to that. So as Chris had mentioned earlier, moving something that's very dreamy and a little bit abstract to something that's very tangible and something that you can invite someone into. And with that, you can help break that down further into what specific things can we do in terms of strategy. Where are your strengths, as Jesse had mentioned when he was invited to a board, and what role would you play? And with that, as we all said, we really seem to resonate around being able to contribute meaningfully and authentically. So thinking about, if I invite someone in, what roles am I asking people to play when I'm inviting people in as well? Fourth is tailoring your speech for the audience or person you're speaking to and the setting you're in. So same thing as before. We were all invited based on relationship, based on connection, and creating a sense of purpose. So sometimes a good basic elevator pitch is really important, but also giving ourselves that opportunity to fluff it up and give it meaning to that person. And then fifth, put it together and make it conversational. So add a question at the end of your description to engage the person and provide an example. So I think a lot about, I've been thinking about Becky's framework for how she was invited in. So relationship, connection, and purpose. In that way. So adding something to the end of like, here's a very tangible thing I'm asking you to do, to create that sense of that buy-in and belonging. So just off of that, I'd love to hear your thoughts about how these steps might resonate with you. For those of you who have done an elevator pitch before, do you feel like you've done something similar? Things that you feel like you might change for yourself?
Yeah, Christy, I've got to unfortunately run at the
Oh,
hour.
yeah, yeah.
We're going a half hour, so I apologize to everybody. That will not happen again. But I just wanted to share, like, this format really works for me, and what I generally do is I have like a 20 to 30-second elevator speech that is always like I can just kind of rattle it off, which does well for me because I live in a building that I literally wind up in the elevator with members of Congress sometimes because some members live here. And so there are times that 20 to 30 seconds is literally like used in an elevator, right? And then to the tailoring piece, like when I'm not suddenly arriving in an elevator in some situation where I just need to have that then gives me the opportunity to make it relevant to the audiences that I'm trying to talk to and meet with, right? And so it kind of gives that customization opportunity as well as that very conversational flow of a core 2 to 3 sentences that really go through the golden circle of my leading with why, then talking about what, and then talking about how, kind of in that short span of time. So I just wanted to share that before I had to hop off.
Awesome. Jesse, do you have an elevator speech you can share with us before you go?
About the climate, like, so when I'm talking about,
give us that 20-second pitch.
so yeah, so for the CMWRA, which I'm actually planning, I'm very hopeful to run into a member from Texas who lives in the building. So it's just that, look, extreme weather, and again, we haven't been using climate for very specific reasons when we're talking to members of Congress. So just meeting a specific audience. Extreme weather events are getting more and more prevalent throughout the country, and it's affecting people in very real ways. We do so much around building physical resilience within structures and not nearly enough to build psychological and social and emotional resilience within the humans that it impacts. And there is a huge opportunity to build community capacity and to allow for communities to organize around supporting each other through these sorts of disasters, right? And that's just kind of like the core elevator speech that leads with why, talks about what, and then gets to how. And then I can build on top of that as it moves forward. And that's like, I don't know how long that took. We can watch the recording, but it's somewhere in the range of 20, 30 seconds right there, right?
That was beautiful, Jesse. And Reb's giving you a thumbs up if you can't see it.
Appreciate the love.
This is Bob. Let me just weigh in on that. I thought that was great, Jesse. I just want to go back and say, just to clarify, Christy, what you first said, it's great that your elevator feet in 5 easy steps. The word easy is not in this. It takes
That's
time.
just me making it friendly, Bob.
All I'm saying, it's just joking about it, but it takes time. It takes work. And I learned how to do this in the mid 80s. Believe it or not, going back to Congress, I was sleeping on the floor with a couple of other people. We were working on a federal bill in Congress. And the people we were working with said, oh, you got to hang out there, and these Congress people got to see you all the time, and you got to hang out. So we slept on the floor of a woman named Scooch Pankonen, who was a lobbyist. And she would have parties at her house all the time, and Congress people and their staff would come over like 3 times a week. But she never went to Congress to lobby anybody. And I finally took her aside and said, well, how do you get your work done? Oh, you hand them a drink, you talk to them for about a half minute, tell them what you want, and move on. And she had that down, exactly what she wanted to say, and was an incredibly effective lobbyist because of that. Now, she was in the environmental field. So I just, but it took time. You'd share your elevator speech with your significant other, your friends, et cetera, and keep refining it before you go out and actually share it with people that are really, you want to influence. So it's not easy, but it can be done.
Mm-hmm. And Bob, what I'm hearing from that story as well, something that I didn't add to the what went well list is food.
Yeah,
Food,
food
drink,
helps.
setting.
Yep.
That always helps. That always helps.
Food and some kind of drink, doesn't have to be alcohol, but
Yeah, yes. But something, but I think again, going to that sense of even if, and I think both these shares are really important because both of these people were not situations where we had a relationship with them. But it sounds like still very successful. But I think that ability to really move into a place of authenticity, and as well as creating a setting where you do feel where it's a genuine ask, and not coming from a place of activation, I think is really important. But yeah, anyone else? I know that a couple people here have been doing this work a bit longer. Anyone else have pre-elevator pitches that they'd like to share?
I'll go by saying this has been really helpful in honing my elevator speech. Despite doing this work for 2.5 years, I don't have a great elevator speech, not like I did for my last career choice. It has taken that 2.5 years for me to really kind of get into what I'm talking about. I'm always quick to test it out at the Sunday dinner table. If I can explain things to my dad in 30 seconds or less, I know I've made it and I can reach most of the audiences I'll be in front of. But the truth is, it really does require doing this work, taking it through those 5 steps and consistently refining it. When I was very, very new to trauma-informed work, I would joke to my dad and say, well, Dad, basically, I teach people how to not be a jerk. And that is that is one way to describe our work. But at this point, and particularly thinking about the climate-based work that we do, it's really about talking to folks as though we're here to make community connections closer so that we're not relying on outside support for the next disaster that happens. So that we're able to take care of things in-house, because one of the things that our community likes to do is take care of our community. But again, thank you so much, Christy, for providing 5 easy steps.
Oh, these are Bob's, but I think they're easy.
Thanks to Bob for writing those guidelines. Yeah, this really is the work. This is the thought work.
And Becky, thank you for
your next meeting. I apologize, team. I'll spend more time with you next month.
You're good. Bye, Becky. Thank you so much. Go ahead, Reb.
I took a lot of notes, but I hope that you send those observations that you've collected today and these 5 steps too, please.
Oh, absolutely, Reb. And I think something that I appreciate from what Becky and Bob said is these steps are very doable, and it's important to have a temporal lens to them. It's going to take time, and our elevator's pitch doesn't need to be successful every time, because every time it's not successful and successful, we grow and learn and refine it as well. So just giving ourselves some permission to allow that pitch to grow and change based on our person and our own lived experience as well. Because I think for those who are starting a brand new group, and I'll just skip to these slides, they're when we do the educational webinars and pitch the pitch of just starting a TRCN to folks who are already interested in this, there's, I think, the biggest psychological barrier that I feel Bob and the rest of us keep hearing over and over is the fear of it going wrong, the fear of skeptics, the fear of rejection, and the fear of like getting into like this political argument. And so with that, when there's an ask to create an elevator pitch, I think as that psychological paradox and that trepidation really comes up a lot for folks, to the point where people don't want to share the elevator pitch and like, oh, you know, if I don't share, then I'll never get rejected in that way. So I think, you know, all of this is so helpful for me to think about and to recognize that we're not going to get it right the first time and every time. And it also, you know, the conversation can also be fluid as well. It doesn't have to be, not all of us are speaking to members of Congress in elevators. So we don't also have to have the most perfect of pitches every time as well. But continuing the conversation, Bob also put together some general recommendations for if we are talking with groups that might have some trepidation, concern about this conversation. For myself, I have a lovely neighbor who is a very interesting person. He has a dog named Snuggles, but he has a very like loud, angry neighbor voice. So every morning I hear, Snuggles, get in here, come sit down. And it's just such a funny contrast. And he has a very loud and booming voice. So for a while, I was quite afraid of talking about things like this with him. But what we found we really grounded in was not talking about, as this says, the facts, figures, and scientific data, but instead connecting on our mutual love for gardening. For him, he gardens from a sense of, I want to save money for vegetables, but I also find personal joy in rooting in the ground and the creation and the nurturing of something. And it's that common ground that we really focused on, and now we do composting together. So sometimes it doesn't have to be a big grand thing in changing someone's political view or mindset or belief in a grand way, but it can be something small and simple and sweet that can evolve into something further down the road. So I'll just like quickly read out Bob's points here. Or when we're working with someone maybe doesn't believe in climate change, doesn't believe in mental health, recognizing that moving into that rational brain is not going to likely move someone because they're going to respond with the rational brain as well. So facts, figures, and scientific data won't convince many people because we are deeply influenced by emotions and our mental models and our worldviews and our own paradigms that shift how we perceive those facts, figures, and data. So instead, moving into our lived experience, and you can combine that with facts, figures, and scientific data, but moving into lived experience and connecting your experience with their experience and common core things that you mutually feel value and mutually focus on. I don't think there's anyone in this world who doesn't want to breathe in clean air. But how we talk about that and how we create that conversation for, we both like to walk in a park. We both like to not smell smoke whenever I walk outside. Can go very different ways depending on how that conversation begins. Bob's last point here is focusing communications on how the things they care about are being affected by the climate crisis in this way. And as Jesse said, climate change, global warming, these things have been around for a while and can instantly put people into that state of activation and moving into that political ideological brain. And when you move into that space, people kind of like get stuck in that, and it can be very difficult to help people be receptive to expanding worldviews and perspectives. So as Jesse said, you don't have to say climate change. You don't have to say CEB crisis, that we're all thinking about it. Rooting in extreme weather, environmental changes. Here in Oregon, we had a terrible, terrible ice storm last year. And sometimes we will root to like recent events that did impact the community. Like, hey, remember that ice storm last year, and it shut down all like the food transportation. Let's talk about how we can connect with community and bring bonds together to avoid the impact of that in that way. And Bob's last point here is seeing is believing. So engaging people in activities that address practical issues they care about. So this is the transition from moving, again, people out of the ideological brain to the pragmatic brain. So the practice of this work, and what does building resilience and really addressing local conditions actually look like? So for example, again, my neighbor and the composting, that's a very small and specific issue, but it's also something very tangible that we can both see the fruits of our labor for that. And so, as Bob says at the end, when people engage and see progress, it builds understanding, which further enhances engagement. We have that sense of reciprocity for I'm investing in this work and I'm gaining something from it. And so I can invest more and I can gain more in that way. So I think, did somebody join us? Hi, welcome. Thank you for joining us. We were talking about elevator pitches today. So you're catching the tail end of this conversation as I catch you up to speed. But that is the core of my work, and Reb and everyone else, happy to send the slides and happy to send our conversation from earlier. But I would love to hear from y'all. For those of you who maybe work with communities that don't believe in climate change or the climate crisis or whatever word we want to use, what tactics have you found to be helpful to kind of move people from that activated ideological brain to a place of connection and common ground?
I like you don't use climate change when I'm talking with someone like that. I do talk about the effects of our warming climate or the effects of our warming earth, and also give very specific things that are happening around this area that demonstrate that. So but I live in a community that also is very plagued with other challenges, poverty, homelessness, food insecurity. So, trying to keep the noses of those who have influence in the community above water is always, the dance of trying to get attention to the climate crisis, because they're dealing with so many other things. So it's a bigger picture that is somewhat challenging to try to get focus on the things that we know that are going to make all of that worse. But
yeah, Rep, I'd love to know any thoughts on how you help folks see the intersection of that work? Because like you said, all of those things will get worse, and all those things are interconnected with environmental injustice work as well.
So I've just done some educating. I've tried to do presentations to the city council, to the Conservation Commission, to other groups. I actually in one of the early climate demonstrations, I put on a little thing in our local park downtown to show interest, like maybe 20 people came. And I had them do a survey. And on the survey, I asked them questions like, you get 5 choices of this question. Where do you see your answer in this question of how important is the climate crisis, or how important is the climate crisis to you? And, I took that survey and I sent it to all of the surrounding communities. They call them select boards here, or city councils here. And then I called them. I called them all, like, so what do you think about this? And some of the people in leadership said, we don't talk about climate change here in this, in this community. It's not allowed. We don't do that. And most of them, there was one that responded who already was doing really good stuff, dealing with the climate crisis, but who was very positive. But everybody else was like, they didn't respond. They didn't, it wasn't like on their radar. So it's hard here. I wanted to say something earlier about our elevator speeches too. I know I approached a couple people with them, but I didn't have something for them to do right away. And so now I realize how damaging that was. And I think sometime it would be really helpful for us to talk about, okay, we have these elevator speeches, we're going to get really good at them, then what? It's really important to go the next step. And maybe that's showing some of the wonderful programs that you've created, or, to help them build some awareness and some knowledge about what's next. But anyway, it's just something that I realized I really made a mistake with, and we'll look at that in the future about how can I pull them in? How can I keep them interested? How can I build on that invitation? Thanks.
No, thank you, Rob. Christian and I are trying to build up a Multnomah County TRCN, and I had a similar dilemma, quandary, when we got a group together, and I immediately thought, that push and pull, because you wanted the strategies and decisions and the vision and dreaming to be based in the group. Oh, there's Chris. Chris got kicked in and out. You want it to be based in the group, and at the same time, but similar to you, I feel like if there isn't a sense of like purpose or belonging in that group, then it can still fizzle out. But that's actually a good transition to Christian. Christian was going to lead a conversation about, even though we're a small group right now, lead a conversation about what we want to talk about next week. So I'll pass it to you.
Yeah, thank you, Christy. So yeah, to that end, as we continue to very much like enter this space as collaborators, and we want to make sure that we are using this time to talk about things that feel relevant to our efforts, and things that we can take and to apply to our work. So do we have anything kind of bubbling up from this conversation or previous conversations that we might want to kind of dive into in more depth during our next session? Maybe some examples would be like strategizing around a public health approach with like real world examples, or really whatever we're thinking is relevant to our work now.
That is not so.
We could continue on with the mission, the vision, and the elevator speeches as maybe a little chunk of what we do, just to give some examples of good ones. Like, I think that's going to be an important piece for all of us, is to continue to develop in that way. But I mentioned, a few minutes ago, something about, okay, I've got their attention. I've got some people who want to come meet. Now what? I think that's a real
Mhm.
piece to not be weak about. I think we need to really know where we're going with that. And
Yeah, I'm hearing, like, from how I understand elevator pitches, there are three components. There's the, know the why. Why am I talking to you? Why is this important? Second is know your audience and know your community. So rooting in like specific language, relationship. And the last one is know your ask. And I do feel that is the weakest part as well. So I think that's a good thing to write down. But Chris and Evelisi, with anything that is resonating with you that you would like to continue in the next time we meet?
I like possible activities that we could do in the community. I know we have listening sections, but it will be helpful also to know possible topics, ideas, even if we are the one developing. But it will be good to hear because different people may have different perspective on things related to the climate, but different ideas, something that it could be simple, practical, and hopefully we could educate the people, but connected with a hands-on activity that we could engage whoever attends to the events. I like the survey idea from, let me see if I pronounce it right, Rep Mackenzie. I think I'm gonna add it on that one because I like the survey as a beginning on to know idea and identify where our people at before the meeting. So that's kind of having an idea. So thank you for sharing that.
one of the things that I've found that's been helpful to kind of weed out people who might be interested is I lead climate cafes. So people coming to talk about their experience, their feelings about the climate crisis, which has been good.
Wow, climate cafe. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and I feel like that, Reb, you're asking and you're asked these connect well, because we're thinking about, like, I have an elevator pitch. What's the ask and follow up? Because as we talked about earlier, that can be where things flop. Chris, how do you feel about next time we focus on follow up and ask, or anything else that you feel is important?
I don't know, if I'm honest. I'm just kind of happy with whatever you want to do, really. I'm just kind of feeding my way into this group. It's been really interesting. Actually, that's really useful doing the elevator speech thing. It's I think, like I said, I'm at the start of doing what I'm doing, and it's really helpful to get me to focus and kind of sharpen my mission statements and so on. There's obviously it's not something I can really do straight away, so I'm just digesting really at the moment. Yeah,
That's a good place to be, Chris. That's okay.
yeah. Cool.
Yeah, and we only meet monthly, so I think there's plenty of I would recommend giving yourself that opportunity to digest.
Yeah, for sure.
And
For
we're
sure.
still around. You can always email us.
Yeah, cool.
In the meantime.
Yeah. No, it's been good. It's been useful. Yeah.
Awesome. Brett?
I really haven't much about the website opportunity that we have. I did early on, but then I couldn't get in. And anyway, I'm just wondering about resources being there to help educate folks who haven't had a chance to be part of the ongoing learning opportunities that we've had, so that, that might be a really helpful resource for folks to be able to tie into. And I'll go try to make that connection again, because I think you know, we have so many recordings that could be really helpful. For instance, the things that Bob's just done in the last month or so with introducing new people to these concepts. Those should be somewhere where we can send them to people that we want to encourage to be part of us. So anyway.
Yeah, I love that idea. Jesse's our website person, but we'll ask him. Or rather, I should say he's our combination of our website person, tech guy. He's the smartest one when it comes to things like that. But I think that's a great idea, in terms of like, here's what I have, here's my elevator pitch, and if I'm still building my elevator pitch and not feeling so confident, let's use Bob as an elevator pitch. Here's a link to this lovely educational webinar that I know you're so wonderful at doing. But we're near end of time. Bob, any final thoughts to wrap this up?
I was just going to say that one of the things we could focus on, which I think would get back into many of these things, is sort of what is a public health approach to these issues, and then give some examples. And then people can say, oh yeah, I can, that's one thing I can ask people to start engaging in. And one way to think about it is public health approach typically has a 3-tiered approach. One is, what can you do, or what can you offer the entire population in your neighborhood and community? Okay, so some educational pieces, maybe it's getting everybody together for meals, you know, to get to know each other, sort of simple things. And then the second tier is, what can you offer for people who are more at risk of mental health issues or psychosocial issues in the face of disasters, et cetera? They might need different kinds of supports, et cetera. And then the third tier is, what can you offer to people who are already experiencing serious mental health issues? And how can you connect those 3 levels together? How can you engage them? So the people who are already experiencing mental health issues, serious symptoms, do you isolate them and just treat them, which is what we normally do, you know? Or can you bring those into the activities that you provide for the entire community or the entire neighborhood in some way? And think that through. That's what this steering committee ultimately needs to do, that you're trying to organize. Really think through that. It takes some work. But if you can come up with 1 or 2 ideas about things you can do for everybody, things you can do for those at greater risk and those who are already experiencing them, and then share that with somebody, and you might get, oh yeah, well, actually what we could do is blah, blah, blah. So you can get a conversation going just by offering that. And we can talk more about that next time, if that makes sense, that 3-prong approach. And so Reb's got her finger up, but does that make sense to everybody else?
Yeah,
Great.
Bob, I think that's a good connection to all kind of where we are right now, for sure.
Great. And I know some other people who said they couldn't make it today wanted to talk strategies and, you know, what's the difference between a public health approach and individualized mental health services, you know, and how, and it is fundamentally different, but they can be integrated.
So, well, go ahead, Christian.
Oh, and final, I know we have a very small group here, so we might need to do this via email, sending it out to the full group, but we just wanted to check in too about the times of these sessions. We realize that people are calling in from all over the world, and we want to make sure that the times that we schedule these events for are most accessible to folks. So if there's any suggestions for some changes or updates from anyone on the call, please feel free to let us know or put it in chat or send me an email, whatever works best for you. But just given the group size, we might need to send out an email anyway. So
yeah.
Chris,
really quick, what time is it where you are in Morocco?
7:30 in the evening.
That's in the okay.
So it's perfect for me this time. You know, it's really well.
Yeah, I know we have 2 groups in Nigeria that said they just can't make it now. You know, it's too late.
Yeah.
So we're trying to, and one in Bangladesh that actually it's the next day already. So we have to figure out how to make this all work.
Yeah, we're thinking of just putting it out there to y'all, as we're thinking of keeping this time, and then maybe offering another time for folks where where this time might be a challenge to get to. But yeah, but that's, oh, go ahead, Reb.
This time works great for me, but yeah, I think 2 times would be awesome. I gotta try to make the second time though.
Yeah, you're welcome to. You're welcome to. We can
3
figure
in
it
the
out.
morning for you, but would that work, Reb?
What about I'm so sorry.
Even,
Yeah, go ahead.
even Julio. Here is 1:30 p.m.
10:30 p.m.
1:30. 1:30.
1:30.
Yes.
Okay. That's not so bad.
That's a decent time.
All right, good to know, y'all. All right. Well, thank y'all for joining us today. Bob, any final comments before we close?
No, I just appreciate everybody being here, and we're trying to learn how best to offer these sessions too. And we're also want to say one other thing: if you have an issue you'd like to focus in on more, rather than waiting for a month to go by, if you can let us know, we can tell us, and we might put it out to other people, and we'll offer these special sessions, 1 hour. Let's get together in 2 weeks and talk about this issue. And even if there's just 3 or 4 or 5 people, we can start doing that. We really want to just build the knowledge base and build that sharing so people can learn from each other. And we're going to be learning from all of you as we go. So if you have really vital issues, let us know, send us an email, and we'll try to put together open sessions or whatever you want to call about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, speaking of which, if we have enough people who want to attend on this Thursday, we're also doing kind of an office hours informal no agenda group as well. So that's another good place to go as well.
Can you give me the time of that and how we would find out about that?
Send the time.
Okay. We'll send a reminder email with it.
Yeah, it's at the same time as this, and I think it's
just on Thursday.
Yeah, Thursday. But I think does it the same Zoom link. I don't know. Anyway, Peg's going to send that out tomorrow to everybody. So, but just at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
But just 1 hour.
Yeah, just 1 hour.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Christian. All right. Well, I'm gonna stop the recording and